You reach into the bin for a potato, and your fingers find a wet place underneath. One spoiled vegetable has touched 3 sound ones. You wonder whether the basement is helping or simply hiding the problem. This is the 1936 United States Department of Agriculture Guide to Storing Vegetables Without Electricity. The method is to match each suitable vegetable to the temperature, humidity, ventilation, darkness, and condition it needs. Current United States Department of Agriculture guidance says perishables need verified refrigeration at 40 degrees Fahrenheit or below. This method is for selected whole storage vegetables. It is never permission to put meat, milk, eggs, seafood, cooked food, cut produce requiring refrigeration, or leftovers in an ordinary cellar. This is not an outage plan for refrigerated food. During an outage, follow current United States Department of Agriculture emergency guidance. Use coolers, ice or frozen gel packs, and thermometers rather than an unverified cellar or outdoor weather. Near the end, I will open the authentic federal bulletin and show you why one room could help one crop and harm another. The page is real. My green family ledger and the kitchen scene are fictional storytelling. That distinction matters, because a useful old method should survive a hard, modern measurement. In my story, I went down to the basement workshop and opened the top drawer of the bench. The green cloth ledger carries pencil columns from 1931 through 1939. It is a fictional family object, and it does not prove a historical claim. The proof begins with Farmer's Bulletin number 879, first issued in 1917 and slightly revised in 1936. I will put the real pages under the workshop lamp near the end. For now, remember this much. The government did publish a vegetable storage method, and it was narrower than the story most of us remember. The bulletin proves the advice was published. It does not prove every family used it, or used it correctly. Current University of Minnesota Extension guidance separately says different vegetables need different storage conditions today. By the end, you will have a practical decision sequence for the house you live in. You will also know the bright safety line between vegetable storage, refrigeration, and preservation. My father wrote things down in the fictional ledger so I do not have to pretend memory is evidence. The federal pages and current guidance carry the facts. I am 68, and I spent 40 years as a machinist. At a lathe, a measurement settles an argument. At home, I used to call a basement cool because my hand said so. I mixed onions with carrots, left a bruised potato beside sound ones, and trusted a room that changed whenever the furnace ran. Those household failures are part of Walt's fictional story. They are examples of bad judgment, not measured historical outcomes. The real record corrected me. 3 federal sources, dated 1928, 1931, and 1938, corrected me. They show that an icebox was refrigeration and that perishables belonged in cold holding. I had remembered one dark room. The record showed 3 separate lanes. That is history, friend. For today's temperatures, use today's rules. Current federal guidance separately requires an appliance thermometer and 40 degrees Fahrenheit or below for a modern refrigerator. Your hand cannot certify that temperature. Smell, appearance, and taste cannot prove that a perishable food is free of harmful pathogens. That is why this entry refuses the romantic picture of one dark room holding everything. The historical sources describe separate lanes. Refrigeration handled perishables. Natural condition storage served selected crops. Tested preservation changed food into canned, dried, pickled, fermented, cured, or smoked forms. Begin with the crop, not the room. Choose only suitable whole vegetables that are sound and high quality. Current University of Minnesota Extension guidance says to store high-quality produce and remove visible decay to protect the quality of nearby vegetables. Remove anything bruised, cut, soft, leaking, moldy, or visibly decayed from the storage group. That sorting protects crop quality. It does not certify pathogen safety for perishable food. Next, find the crop in the current extension storage table for your region. Write down its assigned condition before choosing a shelf. University of Minnesota Extension defines cool and dry as 50 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit with about 60% relative humidity. It defines cold and dry as 32 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit with about 65% relative humidity. It defines cold and moist as 32 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit with about 95% relative humidity. Those are three different categories. They are not interchangeable targets for every vegetable. Measure the actual space with instruments suited to temperature and humidity. Do not rely on your palm one cold evening or the fact that the room is below ground. A furnace cellar may change as the heating system cycles. The 1936 bulletin historically warned that furnace cellars could be too warm and dry for root crops. Current extension separately says storage life shortens as conditions move away from ideal. That means a shelf life printed for ideal conditions is no universal promise for your room. Then check air and surroundings. Harvested vegetables still respire and need oxygen. Current extension says basements and cellars need ventilation and rodent protection. Keep the area clean, dry from leaks, and accessible for inspection. Use containers and spacing that allow the crop's recommended air movement. Do not block required building ventilation. Keep produce away from fuel, chemicals, dirty water, pests, and surfaces you cannot clean. Now label each crop in its storage category clearly. Keep unlike categories separate. Inspect the produce regularly and remove visible decay before it reaches neighboring vegetables. If the measured room does not fit the crop, use the vegetable promptly or choose another current-approved storage or preservation option. Do not force the crop into the wrong room because the room is convenient. A porch, snowbank, spring, window box, or cool-feeling basement is not acceptable improvised refrigeration for perishable food. For suitable whole vegetables, use a space only when measured conditions actually match current crop-specific guidance. This first layer is a measured match among one crop, one current table, and one observed space. Why did this decision habit become harder to see? The sources do not prove one reason. They do not establish a campaign by appliance makers, a national rejection of sellers, or a count of families using Farmers Bulletin 879. I will not turn a federal recommendation into a census. The record does not hand me one villain. Federal sources from the late 1930s show three tools living side by side. Refrigeration held perishables. Natural storage served selected crops. Preservation changed food so it could keep. What disappeared in my own house was the habit of choosing the lane before choosing the product. The documents describe different foods in different lanes. Here is my personal interpretation. I began treating every household problem as a product decision. The green ledger in my workshop represents the older habit of sorting a problem before buying around it. That is fictional character reflection. This is not a story about a vanished miracle, but a story about recovering a decision system. The arithmetic is simple enough to say aloud. Different foods went into different lanes. Refrigeration was one lane. Crop storage was a second. Canning, drying, pickling, fermenting, curing, and smoking were a third lane called preservation. Current National Center for Home Food Preservation guidance separately treats those as food-specific preservation methods. They do not keep food fresh in the ordinary sense. What faded in my own house was the habit of naming the lane first. The documents prove the lanes existed. They do not prove why any household forgot them. If you're thinking this only works for people with a farm and a root cellar, stay with me. This next part is for the house you live in right now. You may have one measured basement corner, one cool closet whose measured conditions match current crop guidance, or no suitable space at all. All three answers are honest. Here are the specific failures. A furnace basement that swings warm and dry can fail a root crop. A damp corner with mold, seepage, insects, or rodents can fail sanitation. A sealed plastic tote can trap the wrong moisture and air for a crop. A mixed bin can force onions, roots, and squash into one unsuitable condition. Bruised or decaying produce can spread rot through neighboring vegetables. A room that feels cold can still be unmeasured. If a space has mold, seepage, insects, rodents, chemical exposure, or dirty water, stop using it. Isolate affected produce. Discard anything contaminated or questionable without tasting, and clean or remediate the space before reuse. If you cannot maintain the current category for that crop, stop using that space for long-term storage. Now the perishable food boundary. Current United States Department of Agriculture. Food Safety and Inspection Service guidance calls 40 through 140 degrees Fahrenheit the danger zone. Refrigerate perishable food within 2 hours. When the air temperature is above 90 degrees Fahrenheit, the limit is 1 hour. Divide large amounts of hot food into shallow containers and refrigerate promptly. Most cooked leftovers should be used within 3 to 4 days or frozen. Reheat leftovers to 165 degrees Fahrenheit. For cooking, current federal numbers are 145 degrees plus a 3-minute rest for whole cuts, 160 degrees for ground meats, and 165 degrees for poultry. Smell, appearance, and taste cannot establish that perishable food is free of harmful pathogens. Never taste questionable food as a test. Storage also does not remove allergens. Label containers clearly and prevent cross-contact when someone has a food allergy. Older adults, pregnant people, young children, and people with weakened immune systems face higher foodborne illness risk. Borderline storage advice is especially inappropriate for them. Canning is a different lane. Use a current tested recipe from the United States Department of Agriculture, the National Center for Home Food Preservation, or Extension, and follow every control exactly. Low-acid vegetables and animal foods require a tested pressure canning process. Open kettle, oven, microwave, and dishwasher canning are not recommended. A sealed lid alone proves nothing. Never taste a leaking, bulging, spurting, badly damaged, or suspicious jar. Follow current disposal guidance. This entry does not teach canning, so make one final check. Name the food, name its lane, measure the condition, follow the current authority for that lane. If any one of those 4 answers is missing, pause. The honest answer may be refrigeration, immediate use, freezing, a tested preservation process, or disposal. Dignity includes knowing when an old page has reached the edge of its authority. Everything I've pulled out of the ledger lives in one place, the Depression household system, in the description below. It has 74 printable pages, 30 food stretching recipes, 52 Saturday actions, and reusable household worksheets. It costs $17 once with no subscription. You can find it at grandpasledger.com. The public bulletins remain freely available, and the system is my organized household tool built from that research. Now stay right here, because what comes next is the entry I built this whole video around. We are going to put the 1917 issue line beside the 1936 revision line and let the page show its limits. Now I set the green story ledger to one side and lay the real Federal Bulletin under the lamp. Farmer's Bulletin number 879 is titled Home Storage of Vegetables. The imprint says issued August 1917 and slightly revised August 1936. That one line settles the first question. 1936 was a revision year. The method was already older. James Beattie, a senior horticulturist in the Bureau of Plant Industry, wrote it. Printed pages 3 and 4 named 10 vegetables that could be stored in their natural condition. Beets, late cabbage, carrots, celery, onions, parsnips, Irish potatoes, sweet potatoes, salsify, and turnips. Mature beans, including lima beans, were treated as a dry storage crop. Then, page 4 gives the decision rule. Different vegetables require different storage conditions. The bulletin discusses low temperature without actual freezing, crop-dependent humidity, and ventilation. Later pages warn that a furnace cellar may be too warm and too dry. They discuss darkness, movable containers that can be cleaned, air circulation, and rodent control. Those drawings are history, friend. They are not modern structural instructions. The sharpest proof is on printed page 22. In the historical sweet potato section, the bulletin called for curing about 10 days to 2 weeks at 75 to 80 degrees, then reducing storage gradually to about 55 degrees. On the same printed page, the squash section named a dry, ventilated, frost-proof setting and about 50 degrees for late varieties. Those are historical details, not today's instructions. The old system was not one temperature, one room, or one trick. It matched the storage to the crop. Today, the United States Department of Agriculture says perishable food belongs in a refrigerator holding 40 degrees or below. Current extension guidance separately matches suitable whole vegetables to crop-specific measured conditions. That immediate handoff matters. A historical page can reveal a sound decision principle without becoming a modern safety code. The bulletin is free through the Internet Archive. I will put the source below the video. Publication proves the advice was published. It does not prove every household followed it. The part worth carrying forward is narrow and useful. Choose a suitable whole vegetable. Read today's crop guidance, measure the space, provide the ventilation, sanitation, and pest protection the crop needs. Keep perishables in a refrigerator holding 40 degrees or colder. The trick was never darkness by itself. The trick was matching the place to the crop. There is a quiet satisfaction in choosing the right place for one sound vegetable and knowing why it belongs there. You did not purchase a miracle room. You made a measured decision. If the room fits the current crop table, you use it. If it does not, you choose another safe lane. No promise of months, no promise of dollars. Just a sound crop, a measured condition, and an honest boundary. The 1936 revision gives us the old question. Current extension gives us the present categories. Current federal safety guidance keeps the lesson away from perishables. 3 sources, each doing its own job. I have one small favor. Write the year your parents were born, that's all. I read every one. Entry 6 begins with one research question from the old household ledgers. Could a family really make bread for 40 cents? And what would that price mean in its own year? We have not proved the premise. We will test the dated basket and the arithmetic before making a claim. This is not a channel. It is a family ledger, reopened, one entry at a time. Subscribe if you want to help recover the next one with the same rule we use today, story for the heart. sources for the facts, current guidance for the work.